Hi, this is Janossy, and this is my page lecture for two very important pages in the Contemporary Computing Workbook, pages 26 and 27. These pages describe how to organize a factual comparison. This is relevant to a number of the projects in this course. When you're asked to compare various things based on their capabilities, this is the way that I'd like for you to organize the information and respond to that kind of assignment. Here are pages 26 and 27 in their general appearance. I'm going to home in on a couple of parts of these pages. You should read both pages thoroughly. The charts that I'm going to show are a way to summarize the things that you have to know from these pages. This is an example of how I'd like you to organize the facts that you collect for this kind of a comparison. We'll talk about that in detail. This is a table of important things that you need to keep in mind. I'm going to go over some of these as we look at this table, but I'm also going to stress these individually. Let's take a look at this table first. On the left side, you list the kinds of things that you're comparing between these various items. In this case, the example deals with choosing a computer for your own use, and I've listed three different types. The first is a Mac, and the second two are both PCs. How did I determine what it is that I'm going to compare them on? Well, these are the kind of specifications that exist that measure the capability or the goodness or the durability or some other factor about these items. These are the items that I'd like to compare. In this case, I've done a little bit of research ahead of time based primarily on price and memory size and perhaps a couple of other capabilities like screen size to come up with items that might be roughly comparable in terms of their performance for my purpose. These are the facts that I assemble about these items, and you can readily see that the fact at the intersection of the row and column is the information for that item. You don't want to have any blanks in a chart like this. Sometimes the information is easy to gather, sometimes it takes some research, and I'd recommend Google searching on the web to do that research. Another thing to keep in mind is that the units of measure that you use to express these things have to be consistent. Now in this case, the screen size measured in inches is always measured diagonally. I don't have to state that. But sometimes smaller size screens might be measured in millimeters. It's not really very good for the person you're presenting this to have a mixture of different types of units of measure. The same thing down here in terms of weight. Pounds is a common measure in the United States. Kilograms is a measure in Europe. Even if these things are stated in different units of measure, you have to do the conversions to get them to be consistent so that a person looking at this can readily compare them. You can't expect a viewer to make those kinds of conversions. It's not doing your full job in putting a chart like this together if you mix the kind of units of measure that you're using. Now let's take a look at the table of things to keep in mind. First of all, the row is intended to represent a capability or a feature. You don't want to mix what goes in the row and talk about different things about the products in the columns. You can't have any blank cells. The presumption is it was too hard to find the information, but it really shouldn't be in the kinds of examples and the kind of assignments I give you. You just need to look further. The information needs to be objective and expressed in quantifiable terms, such as rating categories or scales, or dimensions, or value, that is cost, or speed, or capacity. These are all things that can be measured. It doesn't do much good to put into these kinds of cells general terms that saying this is quite large or this is huge for the size of the computer. That really doesn't give enough basis for comparison. Item number 4. Here's our units of measure. You'd better make sure they're consistent across every row. And it's not a good idea, it's actually not very desirable at all, to load these cells with extraneous information and comments. Those will tend to make the columns not very comparable, and the cells are not the place to put that kind of information. That belongs in a narrative or in a footnote associated with a cell if there's something strange about the way that the information in that cell was obtained. And finally, in keeping with the ACM Code of Ethics, that's the Association of Computing Machinery, it's not ethical to attempt to bias or deceive anyone in the way that you arrange or record data in a comparison chart. This is related to the integrity of the academic enterprise and the scientific method in general. The idea here is to present the information as it exists, not to bias that information or to make it give someone an understanding that is other than correct or true or a full picture of the comparison. Here we are taking a look at the totality of pages 26 and 27. What I've outlined in red here deals with the final product of this sort of a comparison project. You're not done when you've done just the chart. Now you have to make a narrative recommendation indicating which of these items is the best choice and the second best choice. Let's take a look at what that paragraph actually says. Your comparison project ends with this narrative conclusion, which needs to be one page double-spaced, and it's separate from your chart. You have to state here clearly which of the items you compared you recommend for the intended use, which one was the best, and which one was the second best. What factual reasons support your recommendation? This is where your chart is something that you rely on. You've amassed these facts, the facts have led you to make a conclusion, now you're explaining that conclusion and the reasons that exist, the facts that exist in the chart to support your recommendation. And we do need an informal citation list. Now, it's not that this has to be a particular bibliographic format, but every one of the facts that you amassed, we need to know where it came from. It's not that we think you made it up, it's just that we'd like to be able to go to that same source and check it out. I'm not concerned about the format. It has to have enough information in it so that I can find that resource. If that resource happens to be a website, then you should copy the URL from the page where you got the information and include that in the citation list, as well as the name of the publication or something that lets me know I've gotten to the right page if I actually use that link. That link, by the way, doesn't have to be a hyperlink. It can just be ordinary text if the word processor you're using doesn't make it particularly easy to turn a URL within text into a hyperlink. And that's a summation of pages 26 and 27. These are very important pages. You all do have comparison projects to do, and these two pages indicate the content and the format and the whole method for producing that sort of a comparison.